All right, fantasy sport fans, we are back with part 2 of our divisional roundup segment. Fantasy football to the T. We are taking it to the limit. Here we go. Seattle Seahawks. We already covered San Francisco 49ers, but today we are going right into Seattle. We're going to cover their players, their fantasy value, how we think they're going to affect your team this coming season. And obviously, as the offseason continues, heading into the offseason workouts, into training camp, into the season, we're going to keep you updated to the fullest max. So here we go. Quarterbacks, we have Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, what do you think about all this about Russell Wilson, Corey?
I don't know, Seth. I was going to ask you the same thing. What do you think about Russell Wilson? I know he had a really good year last year. He got lucky on some plays, but got some wins that I don't know if should have happened, but he still had some of the numbers. He had 3,100 yards. He had 26 touchdowns. You know, he had some rushing yards. He had close to 500 rushing yards and about 4 touchdowns right there, you know. So 30 touchdowns, 3,600 yards. That's pretty good for a quarterback. I don't know if I would draft him as my number 1 quarterback unless it was late in the draft and I missed out on one of the premier guys.
You know what? I'm not going to draft this guy high, but however, I'm going to say that he's still a top quarterback for me. However,
top 10, you thinking top 15 maybe?
I would say definitely top 15. I would say top 15 for sure. I would think that this guy could easily be your quarterback for your fantasy team. I think this guy can easily put up great numbers for you, especially double-digit figures. I'm not talking about where this guy's going to throw 5 picks, you know, in a game. This guy probably won't do that in his career unless it's just horrible, which I just don't see that happening with this person. He was pretty much unstoppable at home. This guy was able to throw the yards. You know, he got the touchdowns done. Obviously, against the Green Bay game, you know, I think we all know who really won that, but is that really Russell Wilson's fault? No, it's not. You know, and that's what fantasy is, you know.
Yeah, but I'm going to subtract one of those touchdowns, and I'm only going to give him 25 touchdowns, okay?
And you're going to deduct those yards from his total,
yeah,
right?
And I'm going to deduct those yards.
Okay. So
really, he only had 3,000 yards. He didn't have 3,100, even though I know it wasn't a 100-yard pass, but still.
All right. So, but you look at this, you know, what have I been saying, you know, a lot, you know, is that, you know, I'm looking at a well-rounded quarterback. I want to see the new quarterback where you're able to pass the ball and able to run the ball. You know what? Russell Wilson fits right into my category. He's a well-rounded quarterback. And not to mention, guess what? Last year he had Sidney Rice and he had Golden Tate. That's pretty much who he threw the ball to. He had Doug Baldwin here and there. Now, you got Percy Harvin. Percy Harvin is just a game changer. And you got Sidney Rice, and of course you also have, just like I said, Golden Tate, and Doug Baldwin's still there. So he's got the ball, you know, he's got the ball, he's got the players, put 2 and 2 together, you have yards, you got touchdowns, you have a great quarterback in this guy.
He'll be good. He's a great quarterback for Seattle. You know, he's more than just a game manager. He can put up the points. Now, like you said, he has Percy Harvin. If Percy Harvin can stay on the field and his migraines don't bother him, and his, what was he injured? Was it his ankle that was hurt last year? His knee? I don't remember what it was. But he ended up only playing 9 games. He still ended up with, Percy Harvin still ended up with almost 700 yards. He had 3 receiving touchdowns, which isn't a lot, you know, but I think he'll be more of a red zone threat with Seattle than he was with the Vikings, but the guy's going to be good. And do you really think that Seattle's going to play him the same way that the Vikings did, more towards the end, and use him as a running back with Marshawn Lynch? Could you see that happening?
You know what, man? Honestly, anything can happen. Obviously, we can't tell the future. You know, we can't see it. We don't know how anything is going to go down. But I would say, anything's possible here. I think anything could happen with this guy. I think there's a lot of flexibility there.
So rushing aside, he's still going to be a decent receiver for him to throw to.
Of course. I mean, that's why he's there. You know, he's not there just because he has a name, that people know. He's there because he's a great player and he's versatile, and that's what you want in a guy. You want a guy who can, be flexible and be able to, receive the ball, run the ball, however you want to use them, you can do that, and that's why that guy is such a valuable player.
What about the next guy, Golden Tate? Well, do you really consider him the next guy? Maybe Sidney Rice.
I would
is
say
the next
Sidney
guy.
Rice more, and even at that, you gotta look. Sidney Rice and Percy, they've played together before. And it was a good combo. The fact that they're actually reunited, they're back together. I think this is going to work out perfect. I think Sidney Rice actually becomes the number 2 guy in Seattle, without question. I think Percy goes number 1. I think Sidney Rice is number 2, and I think Golden Tate's going to be 3. And let's just face it, Golden Tate's not a horrible, wide receiver. He's actually not bad at all. It's just the guy can't seem to find open spaces as often as he would want to, and that's what you don't want in a wide receiver in fantasy football. You want somebody who's, like Brandon Marshall. The guy catches the ball like crazy. They know that when they throw that ball to him, whether he's being single covered, double covered, he's making the biggest effort that he can make to catch that ball, and the guy has amazing hands. Now, with Golden Tate, it's not that case. I don't care if he caught the ball in that Packers game or not. You know what? The way it looks like to me,
he's subtracting a touchdown from him.
Exactly.
I'm subtracting a touchdown
exactly.
from that guy.
So, and this is what it comes back to, credibility. Yeah, he had some good touchdowns. He did find at times to be open, but look at it too. Was it broken coverage? Or was he just that good of a wide receiver to get open? I think it was probably more broken coverage. And this is where I'm going back at. I believe he's the number 3 guy in Seattle. And I think Sidney Rice, this guy, and Russell Wilson, they found their connection at the end of the season. And next year, they're going to build right on top of that. And they've got an elite wide receiver core now. You have 2 top guys, and you got a third who's a good receiver. I just don't put him as an elite receiver.
Would you use him as a number 3 receiver?
Golden Tate, I would put him on my bench and hope that he gets hot.
Use him as a flex.
At times, if the matchup is suiting, and I don't have really anybody good in my number 3 spot, or my flex spot, then yeah, I'm gonna put him in. But if I have 3 great wide receivers, this guy's riding my bench.
Yeah, I'm a stats guy. Golden Tate, he had 688 yards last year, and he had 7 touchdowns. Sidney Rice had 748 yards and 7 touchdowns, so there's not much of a difference between them stat-wise, I know Golden Tate's kind of short. He's a shorter guy. I don't know. They may play him in the slot a little more. Sidney Rice is going to be the guy that goes down the field that can leap up, grab the ball and everything,
Right.
But I still think that Golden Tate is going to be a decent receiver for him to throw to. I still think that if you're looking at your flex position, like you said, a guy on your bench that could come in, that could play for you, I think that Golden Tate is a good pick in the later rounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they have Doug Baldwin to throw in as their 4th receiver. He had like 360 yards and
definitely
3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and the guy can definitely fill that role.
And last year he was a sleeper. A lot of people thought Doug Baldwin was going to do something good. So now he's their number 4 guy. So if you're in those deep leagues, if you're in those 16-team leagues or something, you might think about going after Doug Baldwin, because most of the defenders are going to be covering everybody but him.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's move on from QBs and wide receivers. Let's go into what people love to talk about. People love running backs, and I happen to have a strong sense of respect for this running back, Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch is just awesome. This guy is a workhorse. He's one of those running backs that will punish a defense. He will not just take a hit and just lay down. He's going to want to give you a hit and expect you to try and give you everything it has, but no matter what, he's going to bulldoze you. He's going to take you down. I mean, look at what he did to Deshaun Goldson in the game last year. If you haven't seen the footage, look it up. I believe it's on YouTube. It's on the web. It's everywhere. This guy literally took to Deshaun Goldson 5 yards back, and people don't, they say, 5 yards, but you know what? You put yourself against Deshaun Goldson, and you see if you can push him back 5 yards. Marshawn Lynch took him down. He bull rushed him. as a running back, even at that, took him back 5 yards, and he got wrestled to the ground because everybody else came in. This guy is an animal, and he's got Robert Turbin to back him up. How are you feeling about Marshawn Lynch?
Beast mode, man. That's all you can say. He never goes down on the first tackle. Ever. He never goes down on the first tackle, and it's ridiculous. But, I have him ranked as probably my 4th best running back. He had almost 1,600 yards last year. He had double-digit touchdowns, 12 touchdowns. The guy's an animal. He eats his Skittles. I don't know what that does. Taste the rainbow, this guy is just great.
Yeah, no, I agree. And for those of you who, if you're looking at, well, what happens if Marshawn Lynch goes down? What's the backup plan? Well, never fear. Just like I said, Robert Turbin, this guy, he is a great player. Robert Turbin, just kind of give you a little history on this guy. He's actually out of Utah State. He was a great running back. They brought him in, and so far when they have needed him, Turbin's come in and has racked up yards. He hasn't been horrible at all. Whenever they needed to, for him to fill in for Marshawn Lynch while the guy got some water because he's been working that hard, he was able to come in and play the downs that they needed him to, and not to mention he got the yards. He broke off major plays, which is what you want in a backup. You want to have potential there. You want to see somebody who can come into that role.
A Bernard Pierce type player.
And that's what you want, So for those of you who...
But does it take away from Lynch's value with him being there,
No, I don't think it takes away value at all. I don't think this is a Baltimore situation. Now, is that, to say that it could never happen? Of course not. It could always become a Baltimore situation where you have a great starting running back and you have a great backup running back, and they decide to split carries. Yeah, sure enough. That could definitely happen. But do I see that happening? No, because Marshawn Lynch has given them no reason at all for them to give him a break from the field. So, with that said, I think that you have no fear. I think Marshawn Lynch is a man in Seattle. And in case he goes down, don't worry, no fear. You have Turbin back there to back him up.
So draft Turbin as a handcuff to Marshawn is what you're saying.
Yeah, and most of the time you'll probably be able to get him in free agency. I don't even know that I draft the guy, but if you're one of those guys who
in a
loves
deeper league, maybe.
Yeah, in a deeper league, especially 16 team leagues, something like that. But if you're really looking at it, you can get this guy in the free agency, and if you are looking to draft him, I don't want to get an email saying, "Hey, man, I drafted this guy in the 16th round." And no, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying he's a great backup plan. Chances are you'll be able to find this guy on the free agency waiver wire, all that great stuff. You'll be able to find him there. I wouldn't spend a draft pick on him because chances are you have better talent that's probably going to be in a better starting role than this guy. A player that can come in immediately and be a starter and be on your fantasy, lineup. And that's what you want on your lineup. You want starters, unless you're in a deeper league, most people are doing 10 team, 12 team leagues. Don't draft this guy, just leave him on the free agency waiver wire. Just leave him there. And if he starts performing well, make sure you're looking around, look at it every single week, the stats on this guy, and you'll be able to see, what he's performing, and that'll give you the heads up.
What about the tight end position? It seems kind of lacking this year with Seattle. Zach Miller. What do you think about Zach Miller? He only had 366 yards and 3 touchdowns last year. Do you think those will improve with getting Percy, or do you think that they're going to go down just because he has so many weapons to throw it to? Why would he want to throw it to a tight end, especially when that's more of a blocking tight end than anything?
You know what? Honestly, I think with Zach Miller, I think this is all going to be coming into. I think matchups is really going to come into play with this guy. What teams out there are giving the most points up to tight ends? He's not a horrible tight end at all. He had really good games. Do I think he's an every single Sunday tight end? No, I do not. He's a guy that'll probably give you 40, 60 yards, in a week, but chances are he's probably he's not going to get you that touchdown every single week. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I would steer clear from him. There's a lot more options out there on other teams. Seattle's got some good pieces. They've got quarterbacks, they have receivers, they have running backs. Tight end isn't high up there, so find another tight end from a different team to draft.
I completely agree with that.
Kickers.
Kickers,
they've kind of got a weird situation
they
going
do.
on with Seattle.
I was actually researching this, and Steven Hauschka, he actually got put on IR, and I noticed in free agency, actually before free agency even began, they picked up Ryan Longwell, and Longwell's not horrible at all. His name actually suits his leg. He can kick this ball a long ways. He's not a horrible kicker. But what they're going to do here, I have no idea, because you have two guys competing for that spot.
Yeah,
what do you think?
And Hauschka went 24 of 27 last year. I mean, he only made 1 of 4 from 50-yard plus, but he was perfect on every other kick under 50 yards. I'm not sure how long he's going to be out for. He may be back around training camp, and they may just use Longwell as to compete with them, So it's kind of an iffy situation. Check with us back later on the kickers, but right now, steer clear of Seattle's kickers.
Yeah, and just kind of to wrap this up, we are looking at the last part of this team, and let's just face it.
Defense.
Defense. It is the heart of this team. This defense is so loaded. I don't even know where to begin. Where are you going to begin, Corey?
Yeah, I mean, just don't do what you did with San Fran last year. Don't spend too high of a draft pick on them. If they're there in the mid to later rounds, take them. Don't wait till the last round to take them. They won't be there. You may be able to find a defense that can be suitable for your team, and that's fine if you want to find them in the later rounds, but just don't overreach for these guys. I know they were awesome last year. I know they're going to be good this year, but you just don't want to reach for them and draft them too high.
Yeah, no, I agree. And plus, remember, defense. What do you not draft before the 10th round? Defense. Why? Because it's a defense.
Yeah, and it's just so random, I mean, the team can be so good in one year and then just be terrible the next. It's so random, kickers and defense alike.
Yeah, I mean, I'll even give you a good example. Last year in my fantasy league, guess what? I made the playoffs. Guess what I did the last 5 weeks of the season? I played a different defense almost every single week.
Yeah, you can play matchups on the waiver wire. I love playing matchups with my kickers and my defenses. But I did have Seattle last year, and I thought, that their cornerbacks were going to be suspended.
Yo, you're laughing over here. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. You're just laughing like, do I look funny?
No, it wasn't you. It was me. Did you not hear that? I guess I have some indigestion or something going on. My stomach was acting weird.
That just completely makes me uncomfortable. I can't even deal with you right now.
Yeah, I don't know. Play the matchups is all I'm saying. Mind my burps. That's just indigestion.
My goodness.
I'm not even old enough to have that, I don't think, yet. 26 years old.
Yeah, you're kind of old.
But anyway, yeah, that's Seattle for you. That's part 2. That's our divisional roundup. And tune in for next week. We'll have 2 more for you.
And it'll probably be from the same exact division. We'll wrap up that division. So look for those other 2 teams to come in. I believe we're going to be covering Arizona and St. Louis. So just look for those 2 teams on the docket. So once again, have a great day.
Later.
Hey, Seth here with FantasySportFans.com. Hey, be sure to enter your name and your email on our website to get instant access to our free beginner's guide of fantasy football. By subscribing, you will get free Fantasy Sport Fans updates, tips, and Fantasy Sport Fan news with no spam.